Hi guys, welcome back to Dream Analytica. Today we're continuing part 3 of more on the anima. In the previous video we talked about projection and how important understanding the concept of projection. Today we're going to talk about anima in dreams. It's probably one of the most important ways to distinguish or to identify your inner woman. And I will actually give you an example of my own personal dreams as well, just to show you that I'm not above any of this, that I am also still in the stages of progression. Although I did do this work a lot, my own individual work. What I'm trying to say is that you will reach the center of your psyche once you accomplish this work, and I've had experiences of that in dreams, in visions, in artwork that I've done where I've encountered the self. But even though that occurs, even though you have reached the center, the work still is ongoing. And that's what I'm trying to say here, is that you still behave in these ways that you're so surprised because of your unconscious contents. So the anima, this is another good example, is even if you've completed the work and you found your wholeness and all that, when you your anima acts like an autonomous entity, meaning she is her own individual character in your psychology. You want to treat her as an independent woman inside you, and that's exactly what it is. There is also some correlation between, there's a huge correlation between your personality type and how your anima behaves. So like, for example, I'm an INTP, so my fourth function, extroverted feeling, that I would consider to be my anima, because extroverted feeling is the eros principle, the feeling aspect of my psychology. So what I'm trying to say here is too that she will behave just as you behave. Like you're still going to be a human. You're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to behave in ways that contradict what you're striving for. And that's just the vicissitudes of life. In the process of individuation goes on till the very last days of your life. And in Jungian psychology, possibly beyond that. That there's this like tree that is growing inside you that will grow to its full form, whether in life or in death. There's some dreams that show that there's a continuation of life after death through the symbols of dreams, through metaphors in dreams. So my point here is that the anima will behave, even if she's matured, even if she's developed, even if you have an understanding of her, she will still behave like a human woman. She will still have tendencies that she will trip over sometimes. And it's also my own responsibility as the ego, as the man, that there are times where I'm just not fully conscious of myself as a human. Like if you get sick, if I get sick, there are times where I'm not going to behave appropriately. Anyways, so back to anima and specifically dreams and how she appears in dreams. I mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. In dreams, your anima, your inner woman, will appear for the most part as a feminine figure, as a woman. She is the woman is the personification of your anima figure. She can also take the form of animals depending on your level of integration or development. So you could say that the anima would, if the anima appeared as an animal, you could say that is more of your instinctual feminine side, the not so conscious yet feminine side. When she appears more in her human form, again, this is not like a rule, this is just like a generalization, a broad generalization, because dreams are very specific to you as an individual and your personal associations. For some people, like if the anima appears as an animal, that animal could actually be a deity, like an elephant or something like that, or a cat. Cats quite often appear in dreams personifying this goddess image of femininity. So again, it's very nuanced. Dreams are very nuanced, and you want to really dive deep into your dreams and analyze your dreams properly to understand what the meaning or context is for your anima in your dream. So for example, in my dream that I had actually tonight, I was speaking with a friend, an INTJ, by the way, and we have very deep, very long talks. And I have this, he called me out. Essentially, he called me out. He said he had some questions concerning the subject that we were talking about, AI, about like the meaning of life and where AI fits into all this. And then I explained like about psychology and stuff like that. But I brought up some personal facts that I thought might be true, just as he did too. And I had this really strong conviction towards those facts, despite the fact that I couldn't necessarily prove them or provide evidence. It was just like it's an intuitive hit. Like, you cannot justify your intuitive hit to anybody because it's a subjective thing. It's an irrational thing. But if I get an intuitive hit, I just have this understanding that I know, like I know. It may or may not be right, but in the moment, that intuitive hit grabs a hold of me, and I will argue to the end of the earth in favor of it. And he gets frustrated at that because he's an INTJ. He likes facts, he likes reason, he likes evidence to support the fact. And I couldn't provide that, so he got frustrated. But I had this hold over me that I just wanted to be right. I have this tendency, maybe it's an INTP thing, you can let me know in the comments, but I have this tendency to, it's unconscious to want to be right all the time. And what I mentioned was that I actually projected that onto him. I said that, why is it so important to you that you're right? And then he's like, wait, actually, no, that's not me, that's you. You want to be right, and you get offended if you're wrong. And that hit me. Like, the projection there was realized. I instantly saw myself in my projection and I started sweating. I was like, oh God, that's embarrassing. It is true. And I accepted it. I said, yes, actually, you know what? I think I might be projecting here, that I do care so much about being right, that to the point where it ruins relationships. So what does this have to do with my dream? So the night after our conversation that night, I had a dream about a woman, very beautiful woman. I don't think I would associate her with anyone I know in real life. So it's just my Anima figure, this woman. Dark hair, dark short hair, very beautiful. And she was lying on a bed in this beautiful room, and I kissed her. And at that moment I kissed her, I felt something in my mouth, and I took a step back and I saw that there was this green liquid coming out of her mouth. And I didn't say anything at first, but then later again, I think she wanted me to kiss her again. I said that there's some green liquid coming out of your mouth, and she was very shy about it. And I woke up. I think there was more to it. Like, she said something, but I don't remember exactly what she said. She said something, she said this word, and it was gibberish. And she said it slowly, and she said, this is why I have this green liquid or something. Anyway, so I interpreted that dream based on my conversation last night, because I was really self-reflecting on the fact that I was projecting my desire to be right onto other people, and it was actually me. That, why is it so necessary for me to be right? And what takes over me when I have such a strong emotional connection, emotional binding to this desire to be right? There's just a strong emotional tendency. And what Jung mentioned about our typology too is thinking is exactly that. It's lack of feeling. So that tells you a lot, because what it means is that the moment you become emotional as a thinker, it's no longer thinking. That's feeling, because thinking is the absence of feeling and feeling is the absence of thinking. They're opposites. Even in typology, when you look at the cognitive function stack, you have thinking, which will be compensated by the fourth function, feeling. So the moment there's any emotion or feeling involved in the thinking, it's no longer thinking. So that told me a lot. So this emotion that I was feeling to defend my facts or my opinion to the end of the earth with such a strong conviction, that is what I understood from the dream was my Anima. That emotional attachment. And the green liquid, you could represent what my friend actually texted me after our conversation, was like, yeah, it can be a little bit toxic, our conversations, if we don't get a hold of, like, if we have too much of this trying to be right situation. And I agreed. I absolutely agreed with him. Which it also explains, as an INTP, the extroverted feeling aspect, our inferior function. And it shows that, look, this can be attributed to a lot of the problems in your relationships with people, of just trying to be right. So if you can recognize that, then it might actually save a lot of your relationships. So the green liquid to me represents quite literally toxicity, like toxic sludge. Like it was that bright of a green color coming out of her mouth. So you could say that that toxic thing coming out of my mouth is from my anima, my vanity, the desire to be right, the idea that I am so smart, that I am so, well informed and all that. I'm not, but that's my anima. This clicked, by the way, and that's one way of understanding your dreams, if the interpretation is right or wrong, is whether or not it clicks. Like the clicking feeling is like an aha moment, like, oh, I get it. That makes a lot of sense. And we will usually say that makes a lot of sense. And it's that sense, that feeling of sense is specific to the individual. The analyst cannot feel that. The interpreter cannot feel that. Only the individual dreamer can feel it once the interpretation is correct. So that really clicked with me when I understood that, okay, so this feeling that I get trying to be right, that makes me feel not great actually, is this woman. She possesses me. So the dream essentially elucidated, revealed to me from the night before why I was feeling that way or what exactly I was feeling. And it showed me that this woman is responsible for that feeling, that desire to be right. And one thing you must understand, she's autonomous. All we want to do is bring light to her. So it's not about controlling her. It's not about repressing her, pushing her down or anything like that. It's just about revealing her. What you want to do with the dream is just to reveal her, to reveal that feminine side of yourself. And in doing that, she transforms. So what I did after this dream, after I understood and I apologized to my friend, I said I was sorry that part of me came out and I didn't mean to hurt his feelings if I did. I mentioned that I was sorry because I didn't know that about myself until today. So it's embarrassing, but if your friend is understanding and if you have humility, there can be understanding and reconciliation. So it's not such a big deal. You just have to realize it. But what I did after the dream, after I had analyzed it, interpreted it, I went back into the dream and did some active imagination. Active imagination is simply a conscious dialogue between you and your unconscious, where you can actually, I wouldn't say dictate, but you could sort of structure the narrative, as opposed to dreams where you're kind of just partaking in it passively. Active imagination is the active engagement with the unconscious. So what I did was I did some active imagination. I went back. I told her, look, it's all right. I know who you are now. I know why we're feeling this way. And I simply said to her in my active imagination, look, we don't always need to be right. And as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, if the facts are not so important, and they weren't in this case for my conversation, it's not really worth risking the relationship with that person. That's extroverted feeling. And if the facts are important enough, if the facts might actually help the individual and they refuse to acknowledge it, and there's no other way than to separate from the relationship, then so be it. But the facts were not essential here to the relationship. Plus, I couldn't really prove any of that. And I was getting emotional with these facts, therefore it's not thinking. So it might have been wrong altogether. It's fine. But essentially, that's what I spoke with her in my active imagination, and I feel a lot better. The night before, I felt terrible, because once you realize, oh my God, I have been behaving this way, I've been projecting, I've been possessed by this inner woman. I was feeling very sensitive, very touchy. I was feeling very emotional and not good. And I also know that my friend was not feeling good either, because my extroverted feeling could detect that. And now, after explaining to myself and then to him and then, reconciling, I feel a lot better. You feel a lot better. It's painful, but you feel a lot better at the end. So that's one example of how the anima appears in dreams and how you understand and decipher her. The other important thing in regards to your anima, in how she appears in dreams, because dreams are so nuanced, but one way you can decipher how your anima is simply by looking at her state, her physical state. That's really a very simple way of understanding what state your feminine side is in as a man. I can give plenty of examples here. So one state, I don't know if you've watched The Ring. I'll post an image of the poster here. The Ring was a Japanese film about a girl who died in a well, and she came back through the TV or something, and she had this dark hair. Anyways, Actually, when I first started this adventure in Jungian psychology, the process of individuation, that was my anima. Extremely terrifying. So that was the state of my inner femininity, you could say. She looked like that ring girl. Very, very scary, actually. It haunted me for quite a long time, ever since I was a teenager, after having watched that movie when I was maybe 13 or 14. That was the appearance my anima took. And for the longest time, she haunted me, not just in imagination before bed. I was very scared of the dark, but also in dreams. I would see her. I would be in this abandoned house, and she would be somewhere in the house. I would sometimes not even see her. I just felt her presence really close to me. But in one dream, I finally saw her. In this house was no longer abandoned, but there was no one in it. It was just me in the corridor, and she was walking towards me slowly. And then I woke up, terrified. I was sweating. So what I did with that dream was I went back into it. Instead of running away or being scared, I quite literally moved her hair aside, and then I gave her a hug, and then she turned in my imagination, by the way, and then she turned into this gold figure full of light, and yeah, she no longer haunts me. That's not to say she won't ever haunt me again. She could possibly haunt me if I repress my inner femininity again, if I don't understand her, or to some degree like repress her. She was mainly in that negative form because I had repressed my feeling side for so long as an INTP. It's our inferior function, so thinking was predominantly my mode of existence, pure rationality. And as compensation in the unconscious, she appeared as that ring girl. But after that dream, after the active imagination, she had transformed into something beautiful. And the progressing dreams after that, she turned into something more profound, more divine. And now we're leading into the 4 stages of anima development for men, which is very important so you understand that the anima evolves over time as you develop her. So the first stage, we're using mythologies and stuff like that. So the first stage, she is Eve from Adam and Eve. She represents the biological sexual desire in men, the sexual tendencies in men. So quite primitive. She's Eve. The second one is Helen of Troy. She's a little more elevated than Eve. She has more stature, but she still has that sexual aesthetic tendency in men. So she's sort of the aesthetic aspect that men strive for when we look out in the world for beauty and beautiful women and beautiful objects. That's Helen. The third stage, which I had a dream about, is the Virgin Mary. She's the highest attainment of spiritual connection and wisdom. Wisdom to the degree in only its divine sense. So it's too high up, so to speak. A lot of men will reach that, attain that development in their later years. But I had a dream about her almost 4 years ago now. I had a dream about her. I can tell you the dream. I was sitting in a just completely white expanse. Everything is white. And in the middle of this white expanse, sat cross-legged, was a woman in a blue veil holding a baby. And I was standing on her right, so she was on my left. Left represents the feminine side in our psychology, and intuition, the unconscious, is represented as the left. So she was sitting on my left, and there was a warm golden glow emanating off of her, and I felt a sense of warmth, and I felt like a protector. So she connected me to the divine, essentially. And the white expanse you could take as a metaphor for that higher spiritual realm. And what you want to do as well to understand what this dream means is the law of compensation. I've mentioned this many times before in all of my videos, the law of compensation. Dreams act as a compensatory mechanism for our conscious attitude. So you could say that the fact that I had such a dream was compensating for some very severe suffering on the outside. A sense of meaninglessness, a sense of coldness, because there was warmth in the dream, so therefore I was feeling very detached, very cold. So she brought back that warmth as sort of a messenger from above to remind me that there is higher meaning, a higher guidance, higher values, which I had forgotten. And the fourth stage, which very few men have attained, is Sophia, which is the highest attainment of wisdom because it connects wisdom not just with the upper realm, but with the earthly realm as well. So it's wisdom in its earthly form, wisdom that we can use to live everyday life. You could say that Sophia, I think, is the literal translation for wisdom. So Sophia would be the highest attainment of anima development for men. And you might be able to see her in your dreams. I don't necessarily know if I have seen her in my dreams. I feel like I have, but I would say that I would be careful with myself saying that because I don't want to sound egotistical, like, oh yeah, I've seen the Force, you know. I just have this feeling that I might have seen her. It was very interesting. She was dressed in all white in the dream, like a younger girl dressed in white. We were out in this pavilion. She was walking down the steps, and the most interesting part of this dream was there were these snakes, like from another dimension or planet, flying in the sky, like dragons almost, but snake-like dragons in the sky. And there were these very strange, otherworldly looking animals that were glowing purple in the garden that we were in. And I was just with her, and it felt very peaceful. The interesting thing about the snakes in the sky was she had said that, look, those gods, I think she mentioned that they were gods. She said those gods have given us or left us with something. They had left us something, like a technology or some knowledge, like some sacred knowledge left behind for us. And very interesting dream. I still to this day don't really understand the full meaning, but yeah, the image is just so powerful. Like I can, it's like I'm right there at this moment. But yeah, so those are the 4 stages of development for the anima, and that last dream, I think that might have been Sophia for me. I cannot say with certainty because we don't really have an image of Sophia. One way I think Jung described Sophia in terms of appearance was that she might represent the Mona Lisa. Like, she might look like the Mona Lisa. But for me, that's not what she appeared as. She appeared as this young girl dressed in a white gown, like a princess figure almost. And she was, yeah, she just seemed like she was so wise to me. So those are the 4 stages. And once more, you want to be able to define how your anima is just by looking at her. So you could say that if she is in that the girl from the ring state, if she looks like that would describe her. If she's in an enlightened state, that would be how you would describe your feminine side. If she's jealous in the dream, if she's sexually, you know, seducing you, those are aspects of your feminine side. A lot of men will dream about women especially sexually. That's the Eve. That's the most primitive form of the anima, stage 1 of anima development, so in her sexual form. So in dreams, you might often see her as a seductress, someone who lures you to these sexual thoughts and fantasies, which men, when they wake up from their dream, they were like, I wish she was real, I wish that dream felt so real. Or he might even see like a girl that he has a crush on, and he has sexual intercourse with the girl in the dream, and wake up and be obsessed about the girl, not realizing that he projected his primitive anima onto her, and that's why he has all these sexual or deep desires, possibly even love feelings for her. The seductress is very prominent in men. And in fairy tales, very good description of the seductress is the siren, the mermaid, where she lures men into the depths of the ocean or water representing the unconscious. So she's like this demon of death in the depths of our unconscious, where men, sailors, would be lured, like tempted into the waters and drown in their own fantasies, meaning they resign from life. They are completely engulfed, encapsulated by the feminine principle in man's psychology, the unconscious, and they are resigned from life effectively. She has this very powerful tendency to lure men into a state of fantasy. That's really one important way to understand the feminine side, fantasy. She's also responsible for our creativity, our creative endeavors as well. So like our sensitivity to beauty, our connection to spirit, the spiritual realm. Whenever we're in flow state, you could say that she's possessing you. So men who are great artists have a very nice, deep connection to their feminine side, although you could also see it in the negative light where she's possessed the man and then becomes the demon of death. So you could see like a lot of male artists that are too much into their feminine side might actually take their own life because the feminine becomes dark and, you know, lures a man again into that state of fantasy and kills him. So I mentioned that in the previous video, by the way. There are many ways you can see the anima in reality. A lot of movies, like movies especially made by men, you could see these fairy tales made by men, like what the anima is, what is going on with the anima. Like Rapunzel, you could say, is the positive anima, the holy grail, the anima, the woman, his soul, is trapped in a tower, and the witch that is holding her hostage is the mother complex. You see, the metaphors there are so powerful, and then you could, just by watching that movie, you could sort of decipher like, okay, wait, how do I save my anima from the devouring mother? Well, the hero has to go through this treacherous journey and battle to get to, you know, the dragon, to get to his feminine side, his soul. That's another thing I mentioned in the previous video. Anima is Latin for soul, and that tells you everything you need to know. There are just so many dreams, like fairy tales, stories, movies. There's, anytime you see a movie written by a man and there's this rescuing aspect of hero trying to rescue his princess, woman, girl, you know, that's the writers, directors, he's actually portraying his own psychology, his own psychological myth, as a matter of fact. So when you read these stories, you're actually seeing their psychological state, their psychological journey. He is in the process of rescuing his anima through this creative act of creating a film and portraying it onto film, expressing his inner femininity, the desire to save her and all that. That's a really healthy way of integration and connecting with your anima, is through the creative process. And by doing the creative process I mentioned in the other video, you lessen the sexual tendencies too, because it's energy. So when you use this energy in a creative form, sex is a creative act for men, but if you use this in a creative, productive form, instead of self-gratification, you connect with a higher level of your femininity. You're more of a dialogue where she can actually live and breathe through you. You become a sort of medium through which she flows out through creative works. And creative work is not limited to anything. Art itself is life, is human. So anything creative, you know, there's no limit. Like, it can be sports, it can be dancing, it can be drawing, writing, obviously, you know, painting, sculpture. There's so many things. You just have to engage with your creative side and feel the thing that you're doing. And that's how you connect with her. So to recap, the way you want to engage with her is through your dreams, to illustrate what she looks like, to illustrate what those feelings represent in symbolic form, because a lot of men are image-based. We absorb a lot of images, or understanding comes through images. So your dreams will illustrate those things to you through images, through symbols, and it'll show you this feeling looks like this image. This state, like let's say your house is in a poor state, or she is in a poor state. She can represent your house too, because that's like the mother, the womb. She is in a poor state, so that means your feelings are in a poor state, or you're in this mood. She could represent a mood, like a dark decaying house can represent a dark decaying mood, a depressed mood. She could dress as a woman in black, and that could represent that you're feminine, or you're in a depressive mood right now. She represents moods a lot of the times for men. So these are just great ways to understand your feminine side and to shine a light on her. That's what we're trying to do in psychology. Just as I did the video for the animist, or the man in woman, we're just trying to shine a light on her, and the very act of shining a light on her transforms her into something more positive. And it's really that simple and difficult. So that's all I have for this third part of more on the anima. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to have more information on this, you can download the app. You can also reach out to me personally if you need help working on your anima in a personal setting. You could leave your dreams on my website so that we could all look at it together if you're brave enough. If you want to reach out to me personally, I'll leave my information in the description for you. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. And we have one more part to this, which I said that I would show maybe some clips, reels of real life examples of anima possession, or the anima examples in men. All right, that's all I have. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good day.